Hey everybody, I'm excited to share with you my top 5 silly games. Now, what do I mean by silly games? I'm talking games that are a little goofy, probably super easy to learn, and definitely get you laughing and having a great time with your friends. These are games that are just really easy to learn and to share with others that you might not have actually tried to play before. Maybe because they seem like they were a little juvenile or for children. Now, some of my games do depict children on the back of the box. I think they're still perfectly fine for adults though. Now, not all of my games are children's games, so that's why that's not what the title of this is. These are silly games. Games where you act silly or you feel silly or you laugh whenever the round is over because you look at your friends and you go, what are you doing? That's what I'm talking about. So, to get us started, my number 5 silly game is... They're both by Blue Orange and they do the same thing, so I'm going to count them both. Go-Go Gelato and Dr. Eureka. Okay, so in these games, what you're doing is you have these things. Now, in Go-Go Gelato, you have ice cream cones, and in Dr. Eureka, you have test tubes. And you are trying to transfer items, scoops, which are these really nice weighty scoops of ice cream that are just balls, and then Dr. Eureka, which these are teeny tiny little, beads, and you're trying to transfer these from one to the next based on a pattern that you see on a card. So at the very beginning of the round, everybody's got their stuff set out on the table and you're ready to go, and then someone flips over the requirements, like what this is supposed to look like. And you just look at it, and when you think you fulfill it, right, and everything stays exactly where it is, you release your hands essentially and you're like, it's done, then you yell out either Eureka or Go-Go Gelato, and that means that you did it, and if you did do it, then you get to collect the card, and the first person to collect a certain number of cards, then you win the whole game. But that's not the point. The point of the game is to have fun and to be silly and to yell out that you did it and look over at your friends and they've got scoops of ice cream everywhere and they're holding onto 2 cones and they just look dazed. And you're just like, what were you doing? And they're like, I don't know what I was doing. I was very confused. And yeah, they're logic puzzles. And yes, there is this tactile 3D element to it. And yes, it's timed, which that's it. That's the thing that makes it so fun, are all 3 of those things jammed together with bright colors and just a really fun spirit to it. If you want to start off the night with Go-Go Gelato or Dr. Eureka, or maybe you just got done playing a really hearty game and you want to sit down and just kind of like relax and be silly, this is a great way to end the night, as we just did last week for my game session. We played Pan Am, and that was a little bit of a brain burner, and we said, let's do Go-Go Gelato, and we laughed so hard. It was fantastic. I think these games from Blue Orange just set the tone for my top 5 silly games, these being number 5. Alright, I'm thrilled to move on to my number 4. This is a game that was introduced to me years ago when I attended Geekway to the West, and we met some wonderful people there, and they said, hey, have you ever played Loopin' Louie? And I said, no, I've never played Loopin' Louie. So we played it, and it is a game that has children. I mean, those are babies. They're so small. On the back cover, I think you can play it at age 4, 4 plus. And I thought it was just so fun and delightful. You've got an airplane that you are essentially trying to boost over your own zone. and try to knock over the chicken tokens on other players' coops. And you got these little plastic everything's plastic. It's just real great American old school plastic games. And you've got a little lever, and so when the plane drops down in your zone, you've got to hit it at just the right time, which, you know, dexterity can be so fun for silly games, because if someone misses and they just watch their chicken token get knocked off, it's great. You have 3 of them, so if you lose all your chicken tokens, you're out of the round. It's last man standing. You can still play, you can still push your lever, and you bounce it, and you've got to just figure out the right amount of oof to get it to the next one, or oof to get it to the one after that. And you watch this plane go just like going around in a circle. It's so silly. You can play it super fast. Speaking of having fun at the end of the night, and if you have a certain number of players, you might want to invest in Loop and Chewy too, because Loop and Chewy is for 3 players exactly. Now in Loop and Louie you play with you know, any number, but if you don't have the right numbers, then certain players are essentially at an advantage or a disadvantage depending on where the empty spot is. But in Loop and Chewy, it's made for 3 players exactly, which we had, and so we played Loop and Chewy at the end of the night and just had a blast, because it's the what is that one, the Millennium Falcon? I think it hits the spaceship. It's kind of like the airplane in Loop and Louie, and it just zooms around, and you're trying to knock it up. Same exact game, just for 3, and it's spaced out perfectly for 3 players. You can't go wrong, cannot go wrong with Loop and Louie and Loop and Chewy, like hands down. That's my number 4. Alright, so I promise no more 2 games as one for my top 3. I'm super excited to tell you that my number 3 silly game is A Fake Artist Goes to New York. I can't talk up this game enough. It is probably the most laughs and the silliest experience I've had at Board Game Geek Con 2 years ago. It was so much fun playing this game with a packed table. Normally I don't get to sit around a table with, you know, 6, 7, 8 other people and play games. That's not necessarily the community that I have here in my normal life, my everyday life. And so having that experience was just amazing. Now, when a fake artist goes to New York, one person's fake and they don't know what everyone else is drawing, and you pass around this little artist board, this easel, and you're drawing just a little piece of the picture. But it's surprisingly hard to determine who does and doesn't know what they're doing, because everyone at the table knows what they're drawing collectively except for one person. There are 3 roles in A Fake Artist Goes to New York. The first one is the GM. They're essentially the person who comes up with the word or concept that they want everybody to collectively draw. There's also a fake artist, and that fake artist doesn't know what that word is. Everybody else at the table is a real artist, but not everybody knows what everyone's secret role is, either the fake artist or a real artist. They just know that they saw a word. Let's say they saw the word lion. They all collectively will draw one line of a lion, trying to create the image, but not give too much away to the fake artist. Everyone draws one line going around 2 times around the circle, and at the end of the second round, after everyone's drawn 2 lines, you will decide who you think the fake artist is. Now, every colored pen identifies who's drawing what, so you can always go back to the picture and say, I'm pretty sure that I think it's so-and-so because I can tell that they drew this line here and they didn't know what they were doing, or it looks kind of weird, or it doesn't really fit in with the thing that we were all drawing. Meanwhile, the fake artist is trying to convince everyone that they know what they're drawing. And it's just a hoot. You are laughing the whole time. Everyone is trying to pay attention because they want to figure out who the fake artist is. And if you're the fake artist, you definitely don't want people to figure out who you are, and you feel like everyone's looking at you and you start sweating. And it's just fun because I love secret role or secret identity games so much. And this is such a fast game and it's such a silly game. And at the end of it, you have an artifact, which is the piece of paper in which everyone drew one line of a picture. And you just remember the game. It's so fantastic. You will have a great time with The Fake Artist Goes to New York, and definitely embrace the silly. This is not a game to be remembered as to who won. It is a game to remember who looked the most suspicious and really just judging your friend's artistry and ability to draw. It's fantastic. Alright, moving on to my number 2 silly game. It is very silly. Bunny Bunny Moose Moose. Yep, played this at a con, had a blast. People were all around the table. It's one of those games that draws people in, and if you don't mind looking silly and feeling silly, you will love this game. There is a person who plays the hunter essentially, and they get to tell a story. It's just a written poem that you read, and you can read it slowly and gain momentum. You can read it really fast to really challenge everybody else at the table, but everybody else will sit on the other side, and you'll flip over cards as you say the poem, and the cards are going to give you an amount of points that you could possibly earn, but it also shows you what kind of things you need to do with your hands and with your face. Now you're trying to be either a bunny or a moose. You can't be a bunny moose at the end, but you are trying to suss out which cards match up to make the most victory points. So when the hunter says bang and you essentially end the round and you have to freeze, however you're frozen, you're doing like bunny ears straight, bunny ears floppy. You're doing like moose ears down. You've got tongue sticking out. You've got advanced cards that essentially tell you to do even weirder things with your hands, where you have like different kinds of moose ears and different kinds of bunny ears. Everyone at the table is doing something else. You're so focused, laser focused on like what the story is unfolding and what cards are coming out. So while you're playing it, you feel silly and you definitely look silly, but only when you're done and you're like, you've got like a half floppy ear and you've got like a moose going down and you're like, and you look around, who's next to you? And you're like, you look ridiculous. Meanwhile, you look ridiculous. So it's so fun. It's a great game to play with people that you know, because you just have a great time being silly and kind of like relaxing a little bit. So if you've never played Bunny Bunny Moose Moose, I would absolutely recommend you giving it a try. It's also probably got the best title of a board game out there. It's just loads of fun. You'll feel silly, you'll have a great time, and you'll laugh a whole lot. Alright, I'm so excited. Time for my number 1 silly game. Yes! Telestrations! I played Telestrations before Telestrations existed. We would get pen and paper, and we would sit around in a circle, and back then it was called Eat Poop You Cat, and we would do this. But the game gives you these great dry erase boards that are spiral bound, super easy to use. They also give you cards with all of the ideas and suggestions that you could possibly think of that help you get things going. Because in the original game, you just made up yourself, you just thought of everything. And so that's it. But the core game is still the same. What you do is you write down the word that starts your board, and you will draw it. You don't have to be good. I'm not a good drawer. I try, but not the greatest. And that's okay, because that's what makes this game fun. That's what makes this game silly. You will draw whatever you can to describe, right, your image visually, so that when you pass it on to the player to your right, they can only see what you drew. They don't know what the words were. They don't know what the actual thing is, but they're going to try to guess it. They will guess it and write it down what they think it is. Then they'll pass just that to the player to their right. So the player then looks at the words and they say, how can I draw this? And then they will draw the words that they interpreted from your picture that you drew based on the card, and so forth. So every player is passing their notebook around in the circle, and you are going back and forth between drawing what you read and writing down what you see from an image. Oh my gosh, it's funny while you're playing it. It's so silly, it's so goofy, you feel ridiculous, and then you get to the end, which is the best part. We don't keep points in my house when we play Telestrations, we just play for fun. So when you get to the end, what you do is you tell a story. You take your Telestrations notebook and you say, here's what the word was. And then everyone starts moaning and you're like, oh gosh, wait, what happened? Did my word not get to the end? And everyone's like, we'll see, we'll find out. And then you flip the board and you say, and here's what I drew. And then everyone judges your drawing. And you flip page by page and you just see just devolving images and words, and you finally get to the last thing and you see if you essentially conveyed your point and everybody did it or not. And almost always it devolves into just something crazy and ridiculous and it's nonsense. And so again, points don't matter, just as long as you're having fun. It is a silly game. You will love it the entire time, and all you do is play this until you're tired, until you say, we're done with Telestrations. And so it's just an all-night thing if you want to just do Telestrations, or, ending the night where you just want to have a good hoot with your friends. It's fantastic and absolutely tops my chart for the top 5 silliest games that I love to play. Thank you so much for joining me. I think this is a fun list, and I hope that you have games that you enjoy because they're silly and because they make you laugh. So let me know in the comments below, what games are silly for you? Do you like my silly games? Do you have your own list? And, as always, I'll see you next time. You might need to get chewing loopy. You